So most retirees believe inflation hits everyone the same way. It doesn't. And believing that lie can quietly destroy decades of planning, savings, and peace of mind. Now imagine thinking you've done everything right, saved, invested wisely, yet somehow you wake up one day realizing your retirement isn't safe. And it all comes down to one invisible trap that almost nobody talks about. Inflation isn't just a number printed in the news. It's a lived experience. Two retirees can spend the same $100,000 per year, live in the same city, have the same economy around them, but one will feel secure while the other feels trapped and panicked. And the difference isn't luck. It isn't even intelligence. It's structural, hidden, and subtle. And it slowly compounds over time into tens of thousands of dollars lost each year. Most people hear inflation averages 3% a year and immediately assume that means their spending will rise neatly by 3% every year once they retire. That assumption is false, dangerously false. Inflation hits different categories differently. Some costs explode, some barely move, and the outcome can completely reshape retirement lifestyles in ways spreadsheets fail to capture. So, the harsh truth, retirees who don't understand this can feel fine for a few years and then suddenly realize their plan has gaps too big to ignore. It's like walking on thin ice while thinking it's concrete. One misstep, and the financial consequences start stacking up faster than most can react. Now, let me show you the real mechanics behind this. But first, if retirement planning content that cuts through the noise and exposes hidden traps matters to you, subscribe now and make sure you hit the bell. This channel is dedicated to helping you avoid the costly mistakes most people don't see coming, and you don't want to miss the next breakdown. The moment most retirees lose control isn't when they see the stock market dip or when the economy fluctuates. It's when they fail to see that inflation is personal, and their personal inflation is not the headline number. It's influenced by the structure of their life, the payments they still make, the ones they've eliminated, and the flexibility they have to absorb shocks. Even if you think you understand inflation, the reality is most models overestimate what you truly need. And that overestimation can lull you into a false sense of security, or worse, cause you to overspend early in retirement, leaving you exposed when something unavoidable goes wrong. Over the next few minutes, you'll see exactly how this works, why some retirees feel no pressure while others panic, and what you can do to structure your life to minimize this invisible risk. And I promise by the end of this video, the numbers will make it impossible to ignore just how powerful structure is compared to just saving more money. Let's dive into an example, because this is where theory becomes real. Imagine two retirees. Both have the same income, $100,000 per year. Both live in the same country. Both experience the same headline, inflation. On paper, their lives are identical. But in practice, they couldn't be more different. Retiree A owns their home outright. No mortgage, no rent. Their car's paid off. No vehicle payments. No consumer debt. The only regular costs they have are property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, food, and health care. Retiree B is still paying a mortgage or rent. They have a car payment. Maybe they carry other debts. Everything else is similar. Same income, same lifestyle. Here's where the invisible trap emerges. Most people hear inflation is 3% and immediately assume it applies equally. But the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, assumes housing costs reset every year. It assumes mortgages and rents rise. It counts vehicle loans. It assumes everything is the same for everyone. But retiree A isn't affected by most of this. Their largest expenses are already fixed. When you strip out the biggest, most volatile expenses, retiree A's experienced inflation drops to roughly 2.5%, sometimes less. Retiree B, they feel the full 3% or more if rents spike, mortgages reset, or vehicle costs jump. Over time, that difference compounds into a massive gap. 15 years down the line, retiree A's $100,000 lifestyle costs just $125,000 nominally, while retiree B might need over $155,000 to maintain the same standard. That's $30,000 a year difference from the exact same starting point. Same economy, same headline inflation, same savings. Structure alone made the difference. And here's something most retirement advice never mentions. Spending naturally declines with age, especially for homeowners. Not because people are struggling, but because life slows. Leisure activities reduce, mobility changes, discretionary spending eases. This subtle decline reduces real inflation exposure even further for retiree A. Retiree B sees less of this benefit because mandatory payments reset annually and erode flexibility. This isn't theory, it's research-backed reality. The combination of lower exposure to volatile costs and gentle declines in discretionary spending creates resilience, reducing withdrawal stress on portfolios and extending financial security far beyond what most calculators predict. At this point, if you're seeing how structure beats raw savings, take a second and hit like. It tells YouTube this video matters and helps others discover it. And remember, this is just one invisible trap. There are others that compound the moment you retire without seeing them. Now that you understand the mechanics, let's talk control. What really determines how inflation affects retirement isn't just how much you saved, it's how much you control the big-ticket, resettable expenses in your life. Here's the hierarchy. First, paid-off housing. This eliminates the single largest inflation-sensitive expense. Second, debt-free transportation. No car leases, no loans resetting. These two factors alone create far more resilience than a small boost to savings ever could. Everything else, pre-funding health care, eliminating remaining debt, capping discretionary services helps, but the heavy lifting comes from structure. Notice something important. Owning isn't always better than renting. Renting trades maintenance risk for reset risk. Owning trades flexibility for control. And control matters far more at 75 than it did at 45 because a single mandatory payment spike can completely destabilize your retirement plan. Inflation isn't just about prices rising. It's about mandatory exposure, reset frequency, and flexibility. Retirees with fully paid off homes and vehicles aren't just cutting expenses, they're hedging inflation without paying a single extra dollar. That's why their retirement feels safer and actually is safer even if they save the same amount as someone else. When you plan retirement purely around numbers, you ignore risk exposure. When you plan around structure, you absorb shocks naturally. Paid off housing, debt-free transportation, pre-funded health care, these create breathing room. They make your retirement resilient, predictable, and stress-free. So, before you make your next retirement decision, think about structure, not just numbers. Ask yourself, which expenses reset? Which costs are fixed? Where do I have control? And where am I exposed? Because that invisible gap, the one most people ignore, determines whether your retirement is comfortable or a slow, quiet disaster. If you want more practical, no-nonsense breakdowns like this, strategies that actually help retirees avoid traps the models miss, subscribe now and hit the bell. Every week, I break down exactly what matters, what most financial planners ignore, and how to structure your life to protect your money and peace of mind.